Your local news 1 hour earlier. WFXG Fox 54 News Now.
On this vote, the ayes are 232. The nays are 197. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us at 10. I'm Mark Blaine.
And I'm Courtney Hicks. It was a historical day today as President Trump was impeached for a second time. Both Democrats and some Republicans made arguments that Trump's actions last Wednesday led to the violent attack on the Capitol.
Meanwhile, President Trump issued an address to the country about political-related violence. Fox News correspondent Lauren Blanchard has more from Washington.
Senate Leader Mitch McConnell says the president and Congress should focus on the transition because he says he doesn't plan for there to be an impeachment trial until after the inauguration.
I am calling on all Americans to overcome the passions of the moment and join together as one American people.
In a video released from the White House, President Trump addressed the riots last week at the Capitol, calling for an end to political violence and censorship. He did not address being impeached for a second time by the House. During a signing ceremony on Capitol Hill, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Democrats had no choice but to hold the impeachment vote.
In a bipartisan way, the House demonstrated that no one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. That Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to our country.
Democrats accuse President Trump of incitement of insurrection and say he bears responsibility for the January 6th attack. 10 Republicans joined in voting against the president.
There is no excuse for President Trump's actions.
Some Republicans wanted to censure the president. Others argued impeachment was rushed, given President Trump is out of office next week.
We fractured our nation using the same process before. Congress must be the glue that starts unifying everyone.
While the Senate leader will not bring lawmakers back early from break for a trial, Mitch McConnell has not said whether or not he supports the article of impeachment. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
He will no longer profit from his relationship with New York City. We will not allow it.
The violence at the Capitol last week is not only putting President Trump's final days in office in jeopardy, it's also impacting his business empire. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced today that the city that President Trump used to call home will cut all business ties with him. This could cost the Trump organization up to $17 million a year.
The President of the United States directed a mob against the United States Capitol. In light of this criminal act, the city of New York has determined that it is within our power to terminate all contracts with the Trump organization.
A spokesperson for the Trump organization says the city has no legal right to end contracts, and if they continue on with this plan, the city will owe over $30 million to the organization. However, despite the contract cancellations, President Trump will still operate the Trump Tower and the Trump International Hotel and Tower, which are both in Manhattan.
And more than 20,000 National Guard troops could be in Washington to help secure President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration next Wednesday. And the FBI is now warning of planned armed protests at all 50 state capitals. According to sources, the nationwide protests may start as early as this week and continue through Inauguration Day. Local law enforcement officials in Burke County say they're prepared if anything should happen here in the CSRA.
We'll have additional units on standby. Of course, we have our special response team that is always on call to respond to special incidents or high-risk situations. So those units will definitely be on standby just in case certain civil unrest or if there's any issues that should arise.
Mayor Hardy Davis sent a statement to Fox 54 saying the safety and well-being of residents and visitors is a top priority in Augusta and that the Marshal's and Sheriff's Office will be working diligently to keep the community safe amid the reported threats surrounding the upcoming inauguration.
Meantime, in response to his supporters last week storming the Capitol, President Trump is calling for restraint leading up to President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration next week. In a statement released by the White House, Trump writes in part, quote, "In light of reports of more demonstrations, I urge that there must be no violence, no law breaking, and no vandalism of any kind. That is not what I stand for, and it is not what America stands for.
Good evening to you once again. About 3 p.m. This afternoon, this is what it looked like on Highway 25. This is out of the North Augusta area and the SRP building. Yes, that is the sunshine. Of course, pretty much short-lived. We have mostly cloudy skies across the other region there for you. So we could get another layer of these clouds. Our temperatures are not too bad, actually. For the most part, we are mostly cloudy to cloudy skies in 42. It feels like just about that, with a south wind of about 3 miles an hour. With those conditions in the first alert Doppler radar, our temperature in Evans of 46, Aiken 44, 45 in Allendale, and 45 degrees around the Millen area. Here's a wider view with our radar from Evans all the way down to Gracewood and Highway 56. We're looking at pretty much dry. A few of those spotty showers just into the eastern portion of our area, like into Windsor, Highway 278 down in Barnwell, Bamberg, and also Allendale, and a little bit closer as you get to the coastline. Overall, though, for you, it will be another cold night across the other region. That's including Georgia and South Carolina. Temperatures are still in the upper 30s to the low 40s. And for the breakdown of our temperatures, as we approach midnight, of 40 degrees, 2 a.m. of 37, and then 6 a.m. tomorrow morning of 35 degrees, clear skies. We'll have a look at your 7-day forecast in a moment. Back over to Mark.
Jay, thank you very much. So far in the U.S., over 10 million people have gotten their first coronavirus vaccine shots. Just yesterday, the Trump administration's Operation Warp Speed made changes to its vaccine plan to administer the vaccine at a more rapid rate. Part of the new plan includes releasing more doses of the vaccine and urging states to vaccinate those 65 and older, along with younger people who have chronic conditions, making them more vulnerable to the virus.
And Augusta is currently the only city in Georgia conducting an open drive-through vaccination site at Craig Halton Elementary School. Our Maya Payton spoke with the mayor, who says the Richmond County Department of Public Health and the city have been working on this for several weeks.
Augusta Mayor Hardy Davis tells me one of the challenges is getting as many people vaccinated as possible. He says the goal is to be able to vaccinate 100,000 people in the next 40 to 45 days.
The Department of Public Health right now, they're maxing out at approximately 400 vaccinations a day. They'd like to see that number go up. In order for us to be able to do that, the goal of 600 per day, that means that we've got to not only have more vaccinations readily available, but we've got to have a more robust system.
The mayor gets routine briefings from the local hospitals, and he says they are reaching capacity. He says from January 3rd to January 9th, there has been 829 new COVID-19 cases. He also says within the last 24 hours, Augusta has added almost 100 new positive cases.
We have heard across the state of Georgia where ambulance providers are now making decisions about who they transport to hospitals, especially in life situations. And so we don't want to continue to add that pressure to our healthcare systems.
Mayor Davis says health leaders from around the state will be looking at how Augusta handles the drive-through vaccination process.
And I think we are seeing some success, and hopefully as we scale this up, it will become a model for how other communities, and more importantly, the state of Georgia, will be able to do it. I think there's a partner that we have in the community we want to bring into this process, and that's our military. They know how to do these things on a large scale, and I'm looking forward to engaging Fort Gordon with helping us.
In Augusta, I'm Maya Payton, Fox 54 News Now.
And then there's the question, how long will a COVID vaccine protect you from the disease? While Moderna says its vaccine will provide immunity for a year, some health officials are saying that it's too soon to say. At the same time, a study in California shows that if you're recovering from the virus, your immunity could last up to 8 months or longer. Health experts say this is promising news.
Well, you got 3 defenses against COVID. Think of it as the Army, Navy, and Air Force. The Army, those are your antibodies that go into hand-to-hand combat. They were still around, those antibodies, 8 months later at a very good level.
Researchers from the California study also say the memory cells and cells that kill infected cells in your body are also still active after 8 months in people who've had COVID-19. The hope is that the cells that kill off the disease remain active for years to come.
And reaction from some popular Georgians after they received vaccination shots and the advice they have for you. That's coming up. First, let's check in with Jay.
Well, we're going to give you those stats for it today. It was a little bit on the mild side when it comes to our temperatures, but still pretty cool at 52. We started off at 30. No rainfall, but will we see some by the weekend? We'll answer that question with the 7-day in a moment.
Your local news 1 hour earlier. WFXG Fox 54 News Now.
And welcome back. Thanks for staying with us tonight on Fox 54 News at 10. I'm Courtney Hicks. Mark Blaine will join us in just a moment. New CDC guidelines are in effect as the U.S. saw another milestone with more than 43,000 COVID-19 related deaths on Tuesday. The new guidelines significantly expand coronavirus vaccine eligibility. Now, those 65 and older and those under the age of 65 with a serious condition are told to get vaccinated as soon as they can. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services also announced they're releasing all available doses, saying they now have enough stockpiled for first and second doses of the vaccine.
They should do all that they can to make sure that they're giving vaccine to those who have been deemed highest risk based on our priority group.
About 10 million doses have been administered in the state so far, with over 60% still sitting in freezers.
And with the rollout of the COVID vaccine first going to the elderly and the most vulnerable, it was just yesterday an assisted living facility in North Augusta began administering doses of the vaccine to its residents. Here's Fox 54's Sydney Moore, who talked to those involved in the process.
Mark and Courtney, 34 residents here at Brookdale Senior Living are pressing toward the future with confidence right after they received their COVID-19 vaccine.
There was a party going on here. We were all so excited.
Sales and marketing manager Ceara De Niro says Tuesday's moment puts the facility one step closer to getting residents back to face-to-face family visits.
When the pandemic started, we really worked with the local and county governments to be sure that we were adhering to the protocols, to be sure that we were keeping our residents safe.
95-year-old Phyllis Barnett was one of the 34 residents who received the Moderna vaccine.
I didn't even think about not taking it. I just trust people well enough that are going to school and learning to do all this stuff. And that's going to keep us all alive.
A few staff members from the facility said that many of the residents have always had a positive and hopeful attitude from the start of the pandemic.
And I see other residents talking with other residents and, bringing them up and, sharing, talking and sharing stories. And the strength, it's like they've been through so much in their lifetimes that this is just a blip for them.
I don't like to see people hurt, and if they, need any kind of help that I can do, I want to do it.
I'm told residents will receive their second dose of the Moderna vaccine in early February. In North Augusta, Sydney Moore, Fox 54 News Now.
And big news coming from Johnson & Johnson regarding its COVID-19 vaccine. The company says its early stage trials show their vaccine created an immune response in nearly all of their volunteers with little side effects after one dose. The phase 3 trial will determine how well their vaccine protects us from the coronavirus. Johnson & Johnson is hoping to apply for FDA authorization soon after they receive the final results from the trial.
And during his State of the State address earlier this evening, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster praised the state's efforts in fighting COVID-19 and defended his decisions to shut down the least amount of activities and businesses as possible during the pandemic. McMaster asked lawmakers to pass a bill requiring school districts to return to 5 days a week. He also promised teachers a $3,000 raise across the board. You can listen to the entire address on our WFXG Facebook page. Fox 54, that is. And in the morning, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp will deliver his State of the State address before the Georgia Assembly. That's at 11. We will stream it live on our WFXG Fox 54 website and our Facebook page. All righty, let's switch gears here. It seemed to be a little warmer as we've since experienced. I'm thinking it's going to be a trend. I have a tendency to pay attention to the chief, Mark. I've been hearing a warm up.
Let's not waste any more time. Let's go right to the first alert. Chief Meteorologist Jay Jeffries and find out how our weather forecast is looking.
All right, let's get right to it there for you. Courtney did say Thursday is going to be one of the better days, and that's exactly what's going to happen. A little bit of that fog earlier this morning. This is early this morning right outside our studios. We did have to break in the clouds there for you. This is going to be a time lapse taking us all the way into our sunset this evening. At least it remained very dry. We're still on the cool side when it comes to our temperatures, but that actually will change. We're 42 degrees now, and the winds out of the south at about 3 miles an hour. Here's the breakdown, the latest in our first alert Doppler radar from Louisville, 43 in Waynesboro, and 44 around the Allendale area. Saluda there, 43, and also the same around McCormick. Now here is a wider view, which will include New Ellington and Highway 19 and the 278. Just a few of those spotty showers down into the southeast corner of our area. That's 601, 321, and 278. That will extend all the way up into the northeast area, getting more so into the Carolinas. Georgia's just about dry free there for you. Look like we'll go in tomorrow much the same. Now the temperatures are just about on target, back into the 40s, but here's the breakdown. By midnight, that temperature of 40 degrees, partly cloudy skies throughout the night, 4 a.m. at 36, and there's more sunshine headed our way, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning and 34. We get back to our news now for you for this evening. As we take a look, we'll have that 7-day forecast in a moment. Mark, back over to you.
No true supporter of mine could ever threaten or harass their fellow Americans. If you do any of these things, you are not supporting our movement, you are attacking it, and you are attacking our country. We cannot tolerate it.
Those words coming from President Trump minutes after he became the first U.S. president to be impeached twice. Historical vote coming in the House a week after supporters of the president stormed the Capitol in that deadly riot. Meantime, investigators now believe the mob that breached the Capitol had a plan before the violence broke out. According to a federal law enforcement official, evidence suggests a level of planning behind the riot. The evidence includes some people walking away early from a Trump rally that happened the morning of the riot so that they could get some items to be used later in the assault on the Capitol. Investigators are also tracking down travel and communications records from that day. On top of that, 2 law enforcement officials say the FBI received tips that appear to show that some lawmakers met with people who took part in the riot.
And since the riot, security has been heightened in and around the Capitol, including metal detectors outside of the House of Chambers. On Tuesday, the House Sergeant at Arms office said anyone entering the chamber would be screened for banned items such as firearms. And Google announced today that it is banning all political advertising at least until January 21st. That's the day after President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration. The ban covers multiple platforms, including YouTube, and comes after the tech giant said it formally designated the Capitol riots, the impeachment process, and the inauguration as, quote, a sensitive event. Google will restrict ads referring to candidates, the election, the outcome, the inauguration, Trump's impeachment, the violence at the Capitol, and future planned protests.
Meantime, Nike says it's pulling financial support from any lawmaker who voted to reject President-elect Joe Biden's win. Today, the company shared a new policy for its Political Action Committee. Nike says its PAC will no longer support any member of Congress who ignores, quote, principles of democracy. And currently, Nike said it's not making any contributions at this point to either party.
And if you haven't received your stimulus check, you're not alone. In tonight's Money Matters, Maribel Aber shows you what to do if you don't receive the money in the next few days.
A second round of stimulus checks are landing in bank accounts, but plenty of Americans are still waiting for the money to show up. Many are wondering if they are even entitled to this round of government aid. Money Magazine recently pulled together tips on what to do if you haven't received your payment just yet. To start, you can track the payment through the IRS's Get My Payment tool. It can be accessed at the tax agency's website, irs.gov. But you may encounter delays as demand for the future has been high. If you receive the first stimulus payment via direct deposit, that's most likely how you'll get this one as well, if you're eligible. If your payment is being mailed to you, be on the lookout for a check or a debit card. The debit cards will arrive in a white envelope with the seal of the Treasury Department. The card itself will have the Visa name on it, as well as MetaBank. That's the name of the bank issuing the cards. Once you receive the stimulus money, you'll also get a notice from the IRS indicating how much you were paid. That will arrive in the mail. And if you receive that notice but haven't received the payment, you'll be able to start a trace on the payment by contacting the IRS.
In the meantime, U.S. pharmacies will be able to administer up to 100 million doses of the coronavirus vaccine each month. That's according to the president and CEO of the National Association of Chain Drugstores. In his statement today, he said the number is a conservative assumption and vaccinations can be administered only when pharmacies receive enough doses. The association represents about 40,000 pharmacies, including big chains like CVS, Walmart, and Walgreens.
All right, we're going to take a break there for you. Of course, right behind me, courtesy of meteorologist Trevor Gibbs, he decided to go to Uchi Creek, say the park there for you out of Grovetown, and caught a glimpse of the sun. Will that continue for tomorrow? That answer is on the way.